Good afternoon. It's Lee Cassidy from Tactile Technology, and this is our second introduction of our speakers this week. So this morning we had Ross Cooper-Smith, and this afternoon we've got Erikjan Franssen. So, hi Eric, how are you?
Hi Lee, how are you doing? Thanks for having me.
A little warm, as we were discussing before we kicked off the stream. It is a bit warm in the UK today, and it sounds it's fairly warm over there in Holland at the moment as well.
Absolutely. It's kind of similar temperatures, and we're not used to it, right? No AC and all that stuff.
No, definitely not. It's a little bit warm here. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself, because not everybody's been introduced to yourselves. I've known you a while now, so a little bit of your background and your focus would be great.
Yeah, so my name is Eric. I am based out of Amsterdam, but I've been leading Diamanti for the past 18 months. My history, my past has been always in enterprise software or any type of a software. Spent 11 years in HP, HPE, and then later on Micro Focus. Have learned a lot, what I would say, about enterprise IT in there, and where CIOs, CTOs, and chief technologists spend their money on effectively. And been leading history. I've been leading teams in the security space. I've been in the data space with big data databases. I've been in the data security, data encryption space, as well as application lifecycle management and IT operations management. So I've seen the whole spectrum. And for the past 18 months at Diamanti, which has been an amazing ride. Diamanti, obviously, in the cloud native Kubernetes space, which is a very hot market. And then as Diamanti approaching Kubernetes from an infrastructure perspective has been very, very interesting to me. And it's been a very interesting ride alongside with our customers and partners like yourself.
Yeah, well, it's quite interesting because we were talking this morning about a lot of people forget about the infrastructure side, and that's where majority of applications are given their high availability and performance at the moment. But when you move into a public cloud environment, you don't have any real control over the infrastructure. It's only the application space you've got control over. So, it's quite an interesting area to be discussing. And if anybody's moving into cloud native, they've got these challenges to take on, as well as reaping some of the rewards. I know you're going to cover some key areas that have come out of some, I think it was some publications on the Register and a few others where you've seen, discussions around Kubernetes introduction and, some of the benefits and some of the problems. So could you give us an introduction into what you're going to talk about next week?
Yeah, so my idea is that basically dissect a few of the opinions that have been published on the Register. They had a specific theme around cloud native, and they had some of these statements out there, and then they would gauge about who thinks what, right? So it was kind of a polling exercise of them, but they would put these daunting statements out there. And one of them, right, from the beginning, like containers and Kubernetes is a black hole of unpredictable spend, according to a new report, right? and this is a very good statement, right? Especially when it comes down to deploying cloud. And right on the other screen to the right of me, and I pray and hope everything goes well for him, but you can see Mr. Bezos from Amazon being shot up into space in 10 minutes from now, right?
Oh, yeah, he's off on his travels, isn't he? It's his mother's birthday, I believe, as well.
Yeah, and I wish him very well that he succeeds with that mission and safely, and I think it's amazing work that he's been doing. Yeah. But effectively,
I don't know about you. I'd let someone else go on the first manned flights in that spacecraft. Yeah,
I was thinking about it. It's actually a Dutch gentleman that actually joining him. So it's funny that there's a Dutch gentleman next to him actually flying on that first flight. But what you see is that overall, when cloud came around and also cloud native came around, is that was an application developer driven exercise, and that exercise started with the simplest consumption models that Amazon could provide you, or Azure or Google could provide you, which was effectively deploying your credit card and deploy some infrastructure that you're required for your application, right? So that black hole of unpredictable spend and that risk is still there. And we have active customer examples that are feeling that they're co-funding this nice little trip into space right now, right? So there can be cost management when deploying Kubernetes, and cost management when deploying cloud, and the cost management when it comes to hybrid cloud is a very important decision to be made, and the pieces of infrastructure, the types of infrastructure that you're using for certain applications is something that I would talk about, and the decisions that you need to make there. So I think that was a very interesting one.
There's a good linkage there as well, because this morning Ross Cooper Smith and I were talking, and one of the companies that were bitten by this unpredictability was NASA, because NASA had a lot of application workloads moving into AWS, and they moved one large research project in there, and were bitten by a very large cost. I don't know, it's 20 or 50 million charge that they weren't expecting around access to data. So, it's a quite nice little linkage around there, isn't it?
There's a bridge to
space, and NASA spending a lot of money, but
NASA has co-funded this trip then up there, right? And again, hope all goes well, because I think it's an amazing development. But this is something that is real for enterprises and in our day-to-day lives, right?
Yeah.
Second of all, I found a very interesting statement as well. Containers have a security problems and flexibility issues, and VM will make them viable, right? So this is about moving off VMs, moving into containers, and then the security problems that it creates and flexibility problems that it creates. And this goes down to the statement that VMs have been out for a long time. So effectively, the whole utilization of virtual machines has been hardened inside of the enterprise IT organization, right? So I mean, the virtual machine has been something that has been out there, but it was just as revolutionary when it came out as containers are now, right? But the interesting thing is that we're still challenging the newcomer that we know will be there, because there's clear benefits in deploying containerized applications in terms of flexibility, interoperability, and the speed that you need in order to deploy applications is just being facilitated by Kubernetes, right? No individual successful fintech, marketech startup that goes IPO right now and skyrockets still has monolithic applications around, right? They make the decisions to be flexible and creative around the process of deploying apps. But we're still defending that historic bit. And yes, containers have security problems and flexibility issues, but there's ways to overcome them, right? There's ways to manage them and overcome them. And I think it's being used a lot by naysayers or people that stick to history. I don't think that the success will come out of maintaining the status quo, and I think that Kubernetes and cloud native is the way forward. So I think that is, and it basically says as a statement, right? Never bet against a technology that has matured for decades. Yeah, sure, Kubernetes has not been maturing for decades, but I do believe it's enterprise ready, provided you take the right decision. So I'll spend a little bit of time on that.
Well, if you look at some of the organizations that are utilizing it and growing rapidly, they are proving it does work, and it works for them.
Yes, absolutely. And so then a further statement that I saw here: enterprise databases deployed in Kubernetes, proceed with caution, warn seasoned analysts. Deploying the ultimate stateful code in a stateless environment is tricky business, in IDC guru opinions. So, and this is interesting, right? So when we started deploying containerized applications, we started with the stateless applications because they were easy and simple, because it's just a few lines of code, and the location of the data or the application of the data itself don't need to necessarily be traveling together, right? And you could just link to any database at any place in order to make the application load up some data if needed. Now we come to the stateful application side, and then all of a sudden Kubernetes and the deployment of containers becomes a data challenge, right? It's about effectively providing this persistent storage availability, providing the right storage lanes for the right containers, making sure that that's all managed in an environment you can still understand it, right? And we do have most successful use cases in our customers are for deploying containerized databases, right? Containerized SQL, containerized Elasticsearch databases, containerized Postgres. All these capabilities are very much available, and again, you need to make the right decisions around it. And we believe there's tons of benefit into it in terms of interoperability, upgrade capability, so the ability to upgrade these databases easily without any business impact, the ability to migrate and move them across cloud, on premise, and back into cloud. So we believe there's tons of benefits there, and yes, there's some challenges, but again, you can overcome them.
And I know some of the benefit you've seen with some testing is performance increases as well with less infrastructure. So I think that's going to be a real key thing for a lot of organizations.
Yeah. And then the last but not least that I will have, will containers kill VMs? There are no winners in this debate because the registrars regis couldn't split the argument. And I'll take into that. And it's interesting to see what the answers were. Because it says, right, they couldn't split the argument because we kept coming back to containers inside VMs being sensible, right? I mean, some of the decisions that are being made to deploy containers on top of virtual machines is just creating management overhead, and it almost seems like it's a bit of a job creation type of situation, right? It doesn't make any technical nor business sense, but it's being done anyway because people don't want to challenge the status quo. So I think it's a very interesting statement as well. And I would like to actually go through these 4 statements in a short session with the audience, give my perspective on them, give Diamanti's perspective on them, and maybe receive some questions towards the end of it. That's effectively what I'm looking to do.
Sounds good. And coming back to some of that as well is, do you think sometimes around the VM to container pieces lack of skills and experience as well? And that's what's driving people to stay with virtual machines because they've got the in-house skills already. Moving to something like native Kubernetes gives them a bit of a challenge resource-wise.
Well, absolutely. And I think that comes to down to a key statement that I'm making in my session. On the application level, there's a lot of experience and knowledge on Kubernetes, right? So application developers know how to develop container runtime, right? They are knowing how to write code in a cloud native fashion. So the application development team is perfectly capable of doing all of this. But effectively, what I'm saying, application development in containers is an infrastructure problem. And it's up to us from the infrastructure teams or up to the infrastructure side to have the knowledge and the capability to provide optimal platforms for the application development team, right? Yeah. This is the true bridge where ops is challenged to know something about dev, right? And ops needs to own that problem and educate themselves in order to facilitate that. If we're not educating ourselves, if we're still staying scared, we'll add in management overhead, and that management overhead will effectively cost us money, whether we will be funding the next space trip for Amazon, or it will effectively create management overhead inside of our companies. It will have too many people deployed to a certain application, and it will slow down the speed of development. And then before you know, we're overtaken by one of the challenges in our market, whether we're in the food processing industry, whether we are in Industry 4.0, whether we are in fintech, marketech, at every place we're getting disrupted by these people that have smarter ideas than we have. And I think it's up to the enterprise to make sure that some of these decisions are not being made to maintain legacy. They're made from a sensible business discussion, and then cold water fears should be able to dissipate as well.
That's true. Well, thanks ever so much. That was a great insight into your session. Thanks for introducing yourself to everybody. Your session is next week. Let me just jump into. So for everybody who's not seen the event, it's on Hopin. We use Hopin as our events platform. So it's hopin.com events, tactile technology, cloud native applications, hyphen between each. Free session. Join us if you'd like to. It starts at 1 p.m., finishes at 5 p.m. So we've got a keynote from Erikjan starting at 2:30 till 3, talking about the power and the challenges of cloud native, as we've just gone through. And the session ends around about 5 p.m. when we've gone through. We've got a number of other sessions covering, how you can build out Kubernetes in 15 minutes, how you can, scale and also use Kubernetes across multiple cloud environments in a stateful way as well, with one of Erikjan's colleagues, Boris, as well. So quite a few things to cover on that day if you'd like to join us. So thanks ever so much for joining us today, and I shall see you later.
Thanks, Lee.
Thanks a lot. Bye.